Let's get to the details now. It happens once a year. Observation of the right of journalists to work freely in any society around the world. World Press Freedom Day is being marked around the world today for a job done almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But even in the freest of societies here on earth, journalists still face various difficulties in the discharge of their duties. One of them is the physical attacks suffered in their line of duties. We'll be speaking to some multimedia journalists, some of whom are unable to stay at work throughout the 5 days in the week. We'll be looking at that later on in the show. But here in Ghana, the focus of a ceremony held to commemorate the day focused on the Right to Information Bill. It is by far Ghana's oldest bill, having gone in and out of Parliament for more than a decade. It is also one of the most controversial bills ever laid before Parliament. My colleague Justice Baidu was at the ceremony and he'll be joining me in the studio. But let's bring you some excerpts from the press conference, not a press conference actually, but a program held by the press, a program held by the Ghana Journalists Association earlier in Accra. We can hear the GJA first.
It is needless to state that freedom is the essence of our profession, and the scale to calibrate the level of freedom locally and internationally is the latest ranking by the advocacy group Reporters Without Borders. According to the group, Ghana maintains a 26th position on the league table of media systems in the world, with the same score of 17.95 she garnered in 2016. Once again, our media have been adjudged freer than that of France, which came 39th, UK 40th, and the USA 43rd. In West Africa, we are number 1, as compared to Cote d'Ivoire, which placed 81st, and Nigeria 122nd. And on the continental level, we moved from the 3rd to 2nd place, the first being Namibia, which occupies the topmost position. Ghana's virtual free-wheeling media system aided to a very large extent the delivery last December of perhaps the best literary journalism ever witnessed in the history of this country. In line with their constitutional mandate to hold the authorities to account, the GJ urges the media to continue to criticize to build and not to criticize to destroy. We also caution against tendencies and temptations of sub-proprietors, managing directors, and bosses who take insidious delight to interfere with the editorial independence of reporters and editors. The attitude, to say the least, is gradually eroding the freedom we fought for and won. Press freedom in all its forms must be upheld and not undermined. On the occasion of World Press Freedom Day, we applaud all media owners, all media practitioners, all media consumers, and all media critics for their indispensable contribution to making our media system a reference point both continentally and universally.
President of the Ghana Journalists Association, Alpha Moni, there, Justice Baidu, who covered that event, joins me in the studio, being a journalist himself. Justice, let's look at the way the program went today. I mean, you were there as a journalist and observing from afar. First of all, tell me about your impressions. I mean, were you impressed with what they were doing so far? And the speeches, of course, that came before we can move on to who said what.
I think today's event is probably one of the rare occasions where you have the creme de la creme of the media fraternity coming under one umbrella, and maybe the only other day would be when the JJ holds its awards ceremony. But I think that yes, and also on a very key theme, which is how the media is going to cope in such challenging times of changing technology and also competition in the media space. Yes,
okay.
but like again, one of the key issues that took center stage in all the speakers who took the podium, it was the issue of the right to information bill, which you rightly said has been before Parliament for close to 10 years, and also the broadcasting bill, which also hasn't seen the light of day. So yeah, the minority had been invited. The majority had also been invited. We had the Minister of Information with his 2 deputies were all represented.
Let's start with the minority leader. What is it that he said that for you as journalists struck you the most?
So basically they had all come there knowing that the RTI was going to be a big issue, knowing how both parties have played it back and forth over the last 10 years. And so he came in trying to defend how they had worked over the years, trying to pass the bill. In fact, he mentioned the time when he was communications minister and the sort of work he had done with the GJA, all in attempt to pass the bill. In fact, he did say that but for the frustration that the NPP, then minority, put in the way of the majority, would try to pass it in the wee hours of the last Parliament. This bill would have been law by now. So that's what
the minority leader said. What we can hear from the horse's own mouth, like we do, it's always the best to hear them say it themselves. Let's hear him now.
Undoubtedly, the media have played its role in our democratic journey and its evolution and its deepening, and we should commend you for the phenomenal contribution to the building of a just and inclusive society, even though we are not at a perfect society yet. But Mr. Chairman, permit me today to make an attempt to reword your topic, even though it lies within your mandate, and that is akin to my duty as a member of Parliament. That is why even the Freedom of Information Bill is subject to parliamentary scrutiny. So in scrutinizing your team, Ghana still in search of right to information law and the broadcasting law. Is Parliament in a dilemma? If I had my own way, I would substitute it for Ghana in the process of passing twin legislations of right to information and right to broadcasting bill, and they would be enacted to law. Therefore, Ghana is not in search of it. Neither is Parliament in a dilemma. We are just on the road, and we are searching and surfing very closely towards the passage of the twin bills of Right to Information Bill and the Broadcasting Bill. One can understand your ambivalence and your disappointment both in the executive and in Parliament, but be assured of our commitment to pass into law these 2 important legislations. So as I discuss this subject, I intend to deal with them on independent basis. My first comment will be on the broadcasting bill, which is easier to deal with for my purpose, after which I will conclude on the right to information bill and then profess some suggestions to getting it. So, Honorable Chairman, if you permitted me, the topic for Ghana is Ghana still in search. Will now be Ghana in the process of legislating and ensuring the enactment into law of a Freedom of Information Bill and a broadcaster bill. That by the time I left office as Minister for Communication, I had conveyed same to the Minister for Information for co-sponsorship of the bill to Cabinet for it to proceed to Parliament for passage. Therefore, there is no debate about a national commitment and a national consensus for Ghana to have a broadcasting law to regulate the broadcasting regime of our country. We need, for instance, to regulate the distinction between community radio and public service radio and commercial radio, and you can only do so within the remit of a broadcasting law.
Haruna Idrisu is minority leader there. He goes on and on about why it's important to pass the broadcast law, but we need to see how it goes on in Parliament. But we know that the majority was also represented, although the majority leader wasn't around. Tell us who was there and what did they say.
So the deputy majority leader, the Honorable Adjo Asafo, stood stood in the stead for the
Osei
Mensah-Bonsu, who then went on again to say how committed this Parliament or this majority in Parliament is to pushing the bill through, and that as soon as they reconvene sometime in June, July this year, it will be one of the things top on the table for them.
All right. Well, we can hear from the Deputy Leader, Joseph.
There's commitment on the part of both the executive and Parliament to pass the Right to Information Bill as well as the Broadcasting Bill. I must say that indeed we are not in a dilemma as Parliament, because if the process or the engineering process has already begun, and I must iterate that it got to a very advanced stage in the promulgation process in Parliament. I happen to have worked on it at the committee level. We worked with the coalition. At the committee level, when I served on the Committee on Legal, Constitutional and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, we were the first committee that dealt with the Right to Information Bill. And a lot of interactions went into it. The bill was taken back to the executive to incorporate all concerns that were raised. The bill was laid before Parliament, and we were at the consideration stage of the passage of the bill. So if the bill has traveled this far from the executive, who would have to introduce, and it has been done, it has gone to the committee or referred to the Speaker first. The Speaker refers it to the committee. We do all the nitty-gritty work. We take the bill line by line, provision by provision, clause by clause, and then all our concerns are embodied again when the executive takes it back. We did all that, and it was at the consideration stage. But it was rather unfortunate that the previous Parliament, which is the Sixth Parliament, had to rise in the middle of it. And we know by constitution and by the mere establishment of our legislature, which is Parliament, it is also for a tenure of office or a tenure of a period which ended, and for that matter, the whole process is curtailed and we'll have to start the process again. But we have no doubt in our minds as a government that this law is a priority, just as it's been enshrined in our Constitution in Article 21(1)(a) of the Constitution, which talks about the fundamental human rights of the citizens of Ghana. And in that fundamental human right, it's enshrined in it the freedom of speech and of media. So everybody in this country is guaranteed that freedom. It is a non-negotiable right of every citizen. And so if this is in our Constitution and has been there over years, and we need an act of Parliament to re-echo that fundamental human right, I don't think that it will be a step in the bad direction or in the wrong direction.
The Honourable Member of Parliament there is the Deputy Majority Leader there. So we know that today also the information, government information, you know, the heart of the Information Ministry were also represented. We have the Minister there and the deputies there as well. What is it that they had to say on this day as we celebrate World Press Freedom Day?
So the Minister for Information, Mustafa Hamid, has already said in the past that passing the RTI is something that is non-negotiable for this government. So for him, it was just a matter of reiterating, and so we would go to listen to him in a bit. But then, just on the issue of the RTI and why everybody talking about its passage, I spoke with Dr. Audrey Gajepo, who is also a consultant in the media and communications fraternity in Ghana, who made a very key point that yes, we are all saying that it has to be passed, but then how ready are our institutions, i.e. government agencies and ministries, ready then that once this bill is passed, if you walk to any ministry, they are able to provide you the information on time and accurately as you want it. And how ready are we to ensure that we are really able to enforce this law? And so for her and for some other journalists that I spoke to after the event, these are some of the key issues, that it shouldn't just be that we want to push this bill through, but we also want to ensure that it serves its purpose, which is to open the space for journalists to have direct and unhindered access to information. So we can listen. Well,
now we can hear from the information minister, who basically is reiterating the point that has been made by both the majority and the minority leaders in Parliament. We can hear the information minister now.
When I said, inshallah, the right to information law would be passed this year, I meant just that. Right now, as I speak, like the minority leader said, we were advised that once the life of a certain parliament lapses, whatever bill or bills were before that parliament ought to be relayed, because a new parliament has come into being. And so, to assure you that per the calendar that we have sent to Parliament, it is in there that in the May to July session of this Parliament, the right to information bill shall be before them for debate and for passage. That is a given. It's non-negotiable. And so I want to use that occasion to using an Akan definition of democracy to say that passing the right to information cannot be a negotiable issue. You know, the Akan people say that democracy is called kabima minkebi amamuo. That's the street definition of democracy, which literally would mean say, let me put it that way. If you must say, and I would always also say, we cannot be saying things on emptiness. We cannot be shouting hollow at one another. If we must say something, we must say something of substance. And saying something of substance means that we ought to have information to say so. So the very practice of democracy without the right to information, in my view, is an anomaly. And we are determined to correct that anomaly. The Honorable Harun Iddrisu made a point, and it is important, that I find it quite intriguing that there are newspapers that have been operating in this country for 10 years that have never quoted a source. All the time they say a source that does not want to be named, or an anonymous source, and so on. How could you be writing for 10 years based on anonymous sources? And we don't find that funny. So whilst the right to information law would come into place, it is also important for us to be mindful of our responsibility towards one another. It is simply African not to injure people without just cause. It is African to respect elderly people and elderly statesmen. The fact that I am young and exuberant and I possess a pen and a paper should not give me the license to malign people just because we are in a regime called freedom of whatever, whether it's association or speech or whatever. So, in order for me not to fall foul of that which I accused the minority leader of, I would want to end my submission here, because that's exactly what I came to do, to give you an assurance that passing the right to information law is non-negotiable and would happen in this year, and that in the May to July session of Parliament, it will be before Parliament for debate and for passage. Thank you very much, and God bless us all.
No wait. I want to talk. Okay, so right now we can hear in the background sounds of gunshots being shot by the police and the military.
That's our own example here at Multimedia of how some of our colleagues have come under attack in the line of duty. We can speak of the Adom FM editor Fiapo Kua, along with other journalists of Adom FM who have been attacked. They were attacked by NHIA officials when she tried to inquire why subscribers who were unwell had been kept in long queues and for most periods under the hot sun. Mind you, she was going to rescue her reporter, and then she was, put in the frame, beaten as well. My colleague Latif Idrisu, his video is what you just saw there. He was assaulted twice. Imanolante, a producer of this show, now living with serious complications affecting his waist and indeed his ability to properly move around. He had been assaulted by NPP supporters at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle whilst he was covering an NPP rally. This was more than 4 years ago, and he's still living with that complication. Also, a former colleague of mine, Jojo Kobna, is a victim of such attacks. He was actually arrested on the orders. He and his cameraman were assaulted on orders of the Accra mayor. Well, in the studio with me is Latif Idrisu. The others will join us over the telephone. Latif, we've seen that video. Exactly what was happening in there again?
Yeah, that was in Samama. When I went there to cover a story on Galamsey and how an Eastern Regional Security Task Force had been sent to this area to stop the operations of miners who mine the bed of the Brim River and all of that. So I encountered these Galamseyers. These are illegal miners. The police were there. I went to the police first trying to get some cover so that I can do my job and do it in a safe hand. But they didn't welcome me.
The police?
The police didn't welcome me, so I had no other option than to be on my own. Now, in the process of trying to film the gunshots and the attacks and how these miners were also retaliating by pelting stone at the police and all of that, some of these illegal miners approached me and asked, "Who are you?" Because they don't know the face. They didn't know me.
Okay.
I was trying to explain to them, I'm a journalist from Accra, ahead of this, and I'm here to cover and bring the story back and all of that. They wouldn't listen to me. And there and then, they started attacking me. One of them was like, "Let's seize the phone." So I tried to tell them that the phone is what I'm using. It's my tool, the tool that I use for my work. You can't take the phone away from me. Then they slapped me.
Wow.
So in the process, they collected the phone and smashed the phone. Now, going back to this story, I was able to bring back the story because of the driver I went with. He had to give me his mobile phone to come back and then use the
How
mobile
did
phone.
it happen? Did it just happen that he said, "Okay, you don't have your phone, so do take this phone"? And how did it happen? Whose initiative was it to begin to take the visuals with this phone?
The environment, when we got there, we realized was very charged.
Okay.
So I don't know. I had a voice that you can take 2 phones along. I had my phone. Then I said to my driver, "Okay, let me pick your phone for a backup."
Okay.
Then he said, "Why am I taking his phone?" I said, "Oh, something is talking to me. I'm hearing voices. So you just just give me the phone." So he obliged and gave me the phone. And yeah, reason why I was able to capture scenes from this very, very chilling situation. Somewhere last year.
How did it make you feel? Because that was not the first time. I know that your phone had been taken. You had gone to cover the Agbogloshi, the resident who had marched to Parliament.
And I remember I was here with you in studio.
Oh, is
on
it?
Pulse, yeah.
I see. So see how easily we forget. Yeah. But you get to live with the emotions and the trauma that it may have cost you.
Yeah.
So that they took your phone at that time. They gave you a few slaps.
Exactly.
And then, so how many?
And then there was the Agbogloshi arrests also, where I was picked up by one guy who said he worked with the national security. It turned out that the guy didn't work with national security. He had the backing of some military men at Agbogloshi. Remember when the eviction exercise was ongoing, the mayor of Accra gave out some buses that those coming from the north should get on board so they take you back there safely and all of that. We're trying to get footages of that. I had this guy approach me and ask the cameraman and myself to leave the scene. We told him we are here to work. Then he had a walkie-talkie. He called out the military. He needed reinforcement. That was the word he used.
Reinforcements against the two of you.
Against, you know. So the first military guy came in. I resisted arrest because I had done no wrong. Then he called again. I need reinforcement. Then I saw another guy coming in. He came in. He was trying to be a bit, you know, violent. So he removed his handcuff, trying to cuff me up. And I told him, okay, I don't want to go on that, so let's go. They pushed me into the van and drove me straight to the police depot here at Tesano. Yeah, so it's been
I'll come back
bit
to you.
difficult.
It's quite difficult, and it is difficult to relive the story. So, but let's go over the telephone lines now. I have Emmanuel Ante on the line. Like I said, Emmanuel Ante is still living with the complications more than 4 years ago that he was attacked. Emmanuel, good to have you on the show. Are you doing okay?
Well, I can't say I am doing okay. I am not doing okay at all. I am in pain as we speak. I am really suffering. As you know, I was in the office this morning, but I had to leave again because my back started swelling up again, and so I had to leave. So I am not okay.
If you were to retell your story, how would you summarize it? I know that you had a slap. You turn around to run away, and then they hit you on the back.
Yeah. You see, it's always difficult and so painful and annoying when I try to tell my story over and over again. But I have no option but to say what really happened. You know, the whole thing started from their headquarters.
The NPP headquarters.
The NPP headquarters. I went there with a cameraman who used to be with us, Bright Champion. Just to cover riots or people that we were told were wielding arms and were demonstrating and were about to attack people and were chanting war songs and all that. We went there to cover, and then they chased us. Fortunately for us, there was a police patrol car coming, and then he escorted us to a safety, and then we moved back, and so we were going back to the studio. We were coming back to the studio. And then we realized that they had marked up at the circle, Kwame Nkrumah circle, and were demonstrating there. So I asked that we go there to film it a bit. But my cameraman was saying that no, with what we went through there, us being chased with machetes and all that, he can't go there again. And here at that place, they were even more than the headquarters. So
but he decided to go anyway.
Yeah, because we're giving iPhones at the time, so that we record what's happening around, things that we cannot take the camera to cover, use the iPhones to capture them and then bring them back to the office. So I just alighted from the car and I asked them to continue and go back to the office. And I went down there. And then I first witnessed a guy being stabbed by someone, people wearing the NPP shirt. And so I was not wearing a shirt. I was not wearing a multimedia shirt. I was only wearing
so there was no identification on you?
Not at all.
So then why did they attack you?
My tag. I only had my name tag with me, which was on my neck. So I covered it a bit, and I just reported at the time to the office immediately. So I descended down there. That was on the overhead. So I descended down and went to the rally grounds where they were demonstrating and was taking shots of what was happening. Only for one guy to say that, way of multimedia, minimum of multimedia. And then the others also turned around and said, oh, yeah. And I said, oh, why? So I started moving backwards. As I started moving away now, and then one guy hit me with an object that I did not know what it was. I still don't know what it was anyway.
And you've been living with that complication for 4 years.
And then they all pounced on me, and they started hitting me with objects. It was a good Samaritan, a taxi driver who picked me up, stopped right in the middle of the road, pulled me into his car, and then sped off.
I see.
That was what saved me. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened by now.
This was obviously in an NPP crowd, if you like, because you had gone to cover them right from their office, the party's headquarters, and so. What did they say? What did the NPP say to you after this incident?
Afterwards, they came back to the office. They came back to multimedia. They came on Joy News TV And they came to promise that they will help with medicals and all that. They came to apologize first of all, and then promised our authorities, our management, that they will sort us out. They will help us with our medical conditions and all that. They will pay our bills and all that.
Who in particular came to render this apology and to make that promise?
At the time, they were led by Elizabeth Ohene.
Okay.
And Boshisai Kofi, Nana Kumia, and then 2 other guys that I've forgotten about, but they were 5.
Okay.
I remember Elizabeth Ohene because she was leading the entourage.
So did they make good of their promise?
No.
I see. And it's been what, 4 years?
Yep.
I see.
It's been a little more than 4 years.
What is it that you used to do that you cannot do at this point, Hima?
Well, I'll give you an example. Something happened in my house. I was alone in the house, and I was trying to move chairs around so that water will not go in there, and so that I would be okay, because it was raining.
It was, okay, your house was flooding.
Yes. And Gifty, now it has given me something. They have scarred me for life, I'll say. I just felt some pain at my back, but I had no option. I had no other help from anywhere, so I had to pull the chairs and everything out. I did that, and now here I am. The thing, my back has started swelling up again, and
I understand. All right, Ima, just so we don't make you relive, you're already living in the pain, just so you don't have to live with the emotional and the mental trauma, Ima. Thank you very much for your time here on The Pulse, by the way. Ima Nolante is one of our producers here on the show, and like you can hear him say, he's in a lot of pain, and he cannot do a lot of things. Actually, it's very difficult, and I understand he was around in this morning, but couldn't make it and had to go back home, and seeing him alone tells you the kind of pain that he's going through. And it's difficult at this moment to reach Jojo Kobina and Efia Pokia on the telephone lines now, but let's wrap up with Lateef Idrisu. So how, you've heard Emmanuel's story, and you have your own story to leave with. You put the two together. How does it make you feel?
I feel journalists are not really safe in this country. I mean, if in line of duty you can easily be attacked, even not without putting on your tag. They are unable to make you out from which media house you are coming from and all of that, and they just pounce on you and attack you because you are doing your work. I don't think we are safe. And let's link this to RTI. I do not know exactly how RTI, if passed, will give us this kind of protection and security that we need to perform our duties without.
Well, the RTI will basically help you to assess information. But I guess the broadcasting bill is what will help perhaps with journalists and how they go about their duties. Yeah. So, but what are your own expectations of how journalists should work for going forward? What are the things that you think that you want to see in the world of journalism here in Ghana?
For you're talking about security or
everything? Yeah.
So let's look at the security bit of it. This has to largely go to media owners. I mean, if you like, if a journalist is going out to a highly volatile environment, you would expect that you have some backing, security-wise, from the media house itself, not from the country's security system, but from the media house. You provide security and some kind of protection so that once the journalist walks out there, he knows that, I have a backing that will protect me when push comes to shove and all of that. So the media houses, media owners also have a role to play when it comes to protecting, their journalists and all of that. RTI, yes, journalists, we are going to keep pushing. We have civil society organizations who have been pushing for RTI to be passed over the years. We still haven't seen it. And listening to the information minister today, I don't know if they are really committed to the passage.
They say they are, so let's hope they are.
We hope so.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming through, Lateef Idris. Whilst Lateef is still here with me, let me just take you through some of the some letters that I have, of course, from the Ghana Police, and it is related to Jojo Kobna, our former colleague here, who was, like I said, arrested on orders of the Accra Mayor, then Oko van der Poy. This letter of apology says the Inspector General of Police, on behalf of the entire police service, wishes to render this unqualified apology to you, Mr. Solomon Jojo Kobna of Multimedia Ghana Limited, for the embarrassment caused you. The Ghana Police Service hereby expresses regret at the action, and it is the hope of police administration that this apology will be accepted in good faith and in the joint spirit of commitment to rule of law and maintenance of law and order. And this was after a court actually ordered them to do so. The same letter here to Mr. Felix Akuna, who was the driver at the time they were arrested, and a similar one to the camera person or the camera technician Jackson, Festus Jackson David, at the time that they were arrested as well. Like I said, we're unable to reach Efia Pokuah at this point, but we've spoken to her several times on this show about the treatments meted out to her by NHI officials. But of course, the courts are there, and the court spoke in favor of all of us. So, Lateef, I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Wishing myself all the best as well, as we all work in this environment. But one thing is key. It is your responsibility, I think, to keep yourself safe, even as you want to do the job. So that will be my message.
And the issue of sources, you heard the minister talk about.
Yeah, not that journalists are supposed to disclose
sources.
their sources, but that's his opinion. Let's just give that to him. This is The Pulse with me, Gifty and Dopia.